Hello, everyone. My name is Julie McVey, and this is Unordinary Made Ordinary, where we talk about extraordinary experiences with everyday people. And today we have a returning guest. Very excited for part two with Paul Wolski. Welcome.
Yeah, hello, Julie. Hello, everyone who's tuning in.
I'm really glad to see you again. I've been looking forward to this part two conversation because the last video, we ended it on sort of a cliffhanger in a way.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I think I've just spoken about I think we ended it on the experience where I met the first entity. I had
Yes,
I had a beautiful experience. So prior to that experience, it was all quite terrifying and strange and confusing. And then I had this beautiful experience, which was very profound and life changing. Um, I think we left it where I said, but after that, things got a little bit crazy and a little bit dark.
exactly.
So yeah, should we pick up from there then and continue?
Sure. Yeah. And of course, in the first video, we did a little intro and got a little bit of your background. So everybody can go back to that video and watch part one and then come back to
Yeah.
this one, or you can watch them out of order. That's fine too.
Well, I'll recap that. My name's Paul. I live in the United Kingdom, in a little town called Blackpool. I'm 39 years old. I'm a musician, amongst other things, and also I'll throw this one out there. I think we touched on this in the last video. I'm a man that's in recovery, so I'm recovering from alcohol abuse and substance misuse issues. So I talk quite openly about this stuff because I know a lot of people on the spiritual journey kind of use certain chemicals to enhance their conscious states and whatnot. Me personally, I feel like that, which I'm not going to sort of get on the holier than thou or preachy, you know, platform. I understand why people do this, and I'm not going to start pointing the finger and saying don't do this. But for me, it got to a stage where I needed to quit all that stuff to enhance my spirituality. But what I didn't realise was that I was slightly addicted to all these things. So I had to join recovery, go through treatment, and I'm now 7.5 years completely clean and sober.
Very
Um,
nice.
yeah, and I personally feel that stuff, that my spirituality and my astral journeys have brought more clarity and been far more impactful without that stuff. But again, if anyone's watching this and they smoke weed or they take mushrooms or whatever, then for me that's cool. That's their choice. And if it's serving you, then continue. If it starts messing you up, stop. It certainly started messing me up anyway.
Right. But you also were in a um you're a musician, so you're kind of in that world that it's enticing, I would think.
Exactly. Yeah, it's very appealing. It kind of it's part of the identity. Do you know what I mean? There's that kind of. I was a huge Doors fan. You know the Doors?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was massively inspired by them. And for me, making music and taking LSD kind of went hand in hand.
Oh,
Smoking marijuana, and
okay. I don't think you mentioned that you took LSD before. Did you have any experiences like
well,
that are similar to what you now experience, astral kind of stuff?
no, I wouldn't say that I had any out of body experiences, but I certainly expanded my consciousness. That's for
Hmm.
sure. I certainly penetrated the veil of reality, and it just I like hallucinated, but I didn't really go to other worlds as such. I was very much in this world, but it was just far more colourful and far
Okay,
more.
more of a subjective reality experience.
Yeah, I mean, in the UK we call it tripping. We'd go on a trip, so me and my friends would drop some acid,
Hmm.
and we'd go walking for about 10 hours, 12 hours, and then we'd get back home. I mean, we'd go out walking. It was just beautiful. I remember once looking at the
Oh,
moon, and it was like someone had, like when you pull the plug out of the bath, and there's that swirling thing going into the plug. I
yeah.
remember looking at the moon once, and all the clouds and everything was swirling into the moon, and I was just like, oh man. And yeah, we'd just like walk around in the streets, and it was like all the houses were made of Lego, and everything was beautiful and colourful and shiny.
Yeah, I haven't tried anything like that. So is that experience more dreamy, or is that very real, like hyper real, like it can be in astral projection?
I would say it's a combination of both dreamy and real. Yeah, it's definitely very dreamy, but it's the most realist thing ever. So yeah, and a lot of people when they have out of body experiences, they talk about how it is more real. The
Right.
sensory, the sensations, the sensory input, the sensory perceptions, whether it's sight, sound, touch, taste, it all enhances. It seems to be more powerful than normal. And for me, LSD was very much the same. And it's not just that; it's the people that you're with. I felt this like real enhanced feeling of oneness with everyone, and love and safety and security, which maybe in family life and school life and just hanging out in the streets, you didn't always feel that. So that in itself was a spiritual experience. Um, I mean, I'm going back. The first time I dropped acid, I was probably about 15 years old. I did start quite young and used to do quite a lot as a teenager, and it did really help. Like open, I think it did maybe open a door and lead to out of body experiences somehow, even though I never actually had an out of body experience directly from taking any substance really.
Your first experience was 16, right? Or
Yeah, the out of body,
that was okay.
yeah. First
Interesting.
LSD experience was about 15. But like I say, when I was 15 years old, most of my friends were like listening to like grunge music or even like dance music, and I was more like a hippie really, where I'd be listening to like the 1960s music, be listening to Pink Floyd, and everyone would be like, "Oh,
Yeah.
what's this awful stuff you're listening to?"
Yeah. That's what I grew up with. Yeah. That's what I listened to.
It's the good stuff, isn't it? And when you're 15 years old and I just started playing guitar, it was magic. It was like, wow, like discovering the Doors and Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd and the Beatles and all that stuff. And obviously then you throw some LSD into the mix and it's just even more wow. But what I believe today, sat here and now, like, 25 years later, nearly, is that you can reach these states naturally. You don't need any. So again, for anyone who's, I personally wouldn't go anywhere near drugs, whether it's LSD, mushrooms, cannabis, or anything harder or softer. I just think that the absolute natural state and the things that I've experienced through meditation and out of bodies are just far more wow than any drug.
So, yeah, no, I mean, I've heard that before, that this experiences can be superior. Sorry, I thought I heard a scratch there, but yeah, the natural meditation out of body can far exceed what one can achieve through, substances.
Yeah, I agree. But at the
So,
same time, if anyone's on that journey, I suppose you can only arrive at that knowledge through experience. So if anyone's like got a real urge to go and find out, then yeah, go and find out. I think.
right. I also know others who it's helped them on their journey. So it's unique to each
You know what? If I knew what
individual.
I know, if I knew what I know today, and I could go back to being a 15-year-old, I would probably just try it all once and then go and then leave it. Do you know what I mean? Because that's the thing with drugs, really, and any like alcohol, is that for me the first few times I did it was just incredible, but for the next 20 years, you are chasing that first one, and that's where addiction comes from.
Right. Interesting way to put it. That's true.
And this kind of leads us to where we finished off last time. So I'd been messing around with drugs for quite a few years. To be fair, addiction probably had its hold on me at this point, actually. But there was always this kind of thing in the back of my mind: oh, you shouldn't be doing it. Oh, you shouldn't. It's wrong. Um, and yeah, I think in the last video, in part one, I spoke about this profound experience where I came out of it thinking, well, it doesn't matter. I can do what I want now. It's not wrong. It's not bad. I'll just, I sometimes hear people speak about these out of body experiences, and they have them, and it puts them on this real good path, this path of spirituality and this path of change and evolution. For me, it was the opposite. where it kind of put me on this path of self-sabotage and destruction, where I think I spoke to you last time about developing the Messiah complex and
Yes.
developing this like sense of invincibility.
Was
Where,
this after, you described in the last video when you met that one entity?
yeah.
And how long ago was this? And then was it after that that you started developing sort of this Messiah complex?
Yeah, yeah. So that experience when I met the entity, I think I was around 21, 22. Well, I know I was around 21, 22. And then there was a few other experiences around that time. I remember this one time where I was just led in bed, and it was literally like a bolt of lightning had come through the ceiling. And people speak about the vibrational stage, and we spoke a lot about it in the last video. But this particular time, it was like this bolt of lightning shot out of the sky, and just it's like I hope my mum's not listening to this, but it kind of it just sent this surge through me, and the whole room was glowing up. It was literally like God was injecting me with some like cosmic juice of love.
Was this during a meditation? Was it during a sleep cycle? Was it
Yeah,
drug induced?
it wasn't drug induced. No, funnily enough, there was never really any drug induced out of body experiences. The one I was just mentioning there, I think that was just as I was falling to sleep.
Okay, right, right.
So there was never any drug induced, but I tell you when it came on a lot was, let's just say that I went out on Friday night, I went out on Saturday night, I went out on Sunday night, and then Monday I probably had a few drinks just to get over the hangover, just smoke some wacky backy, and then Tuesday came and I thought, oh God, right, I need to freshen up. Then Tuesday, Wednesday, I would be like withdrawing. That I'd be all the toxins would be coming out of my system, and it was during them times when I was kind of like on the settee, just like, oh, what have I done, and it was during them times that, well, they speak about the mind awake, body asleep. I think my body couldn't take the level of abuse that I was putting it through, and I just couldn't really, like, walking across the road to the shop was a great ordeal, you know. And yeah, in them times was when it would come on. But it
So your
was
body it sounds like crashed before your consciousness would crash. And
exactly.
then you get this bolt of light.
Yeah, yeah. There was times, yeah, there was that one, and there was lots of different, like, what I call just snippets. So I would fall asleep and I'd find myself just floating, like, let's just say that that's my body led there on the couch. I just awaken and I'd be zipping off like that away, and then I'd struggle. I'd go, oh no, I don't want to go out. I think I'd read somewhere that if your state of consciousness was foggy or you were not, in tune with yourself, then you might run into trouble. Like if you were vibrating low energy. So I'm like fundamentally self-harming, with the way I was taking narcotics. I was quite depressed. I was in a dark state of mind. I was very selfish, I was even like committing a little bit of crime. Like I used to like fraud the like state, the benefit system, and like manipulate the system to get money. I used to sell drugs, like these crimes that would weigh heavy on me. I knew that it was wrong, and I knew that it was wrong, but at the same time I felt like I wasn't well enough to work, and it was just something that I needed to do to get by. So I knew that I wasn't on good terms with myself. So when I found myself coming out of body, I developed this belief system that if you go out of body while you're vibrating on a low frequency, you might be exposed to lower dimensions where you might run into, you know. So someone explained the astral plane to me like an analogy of planet Earth. So in planet Earth, you have maybe these millionaires that just have luxury, so they can go on boats, they can see the sunshine, they can go to islands, they can hang out with cool people, and there's no pressure, there's no worry, it's all very nice. Yeah. And then on the bottom of the ladder, you have that person who lives on the streets, who sleeps rough, who injects heroin, or who has lots of disease and is vomiting all the time and sleeps in the rain. So you've got these two spectrums of like luxury, joy, freedom, and then you've got this other end of the spectrum of sorrow, misery, degradation. And obviously that person is not probably going to attract very nice experiences in his life. You know, I've seen homeless people sleeping rough get beaten up. I've seen them get robbed. I've seen them get abused. You know, so the astral plane, I was told, is very similar to that. You have these higher planes where there's a lot of peace, a lot of freedom, a lot of love, and down in the lower planes, it's a bit darker. You know.
So are you saying that if you are in a dark place, if somebody's in a dark place and they're projecting, they're going to project, attract like attracts like, and they'll project to the lower realm on the astral, the darker realms?
I think it's definitely a theory that has some substance to it. I don't really know. You know, the more the more I delve into this stuff, you know, if I was speaking to you 15 years ago, I would have had all the answers. I would have told you what is what. But the more I get into it, the more times I go out of body, the more people I learn off from on the internet, the more people like yourself that I meet and I have these deep discussions, the more I learn, the more I get another spin, the more I'm opened up to new ideas.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, going back all that time, that is definitely a belief system that I had embodied, you know?
So when you would go out, did you find yourself in lower realms during that stage in your life?
Well, to be honest, I've never really gone to other realms as such. It's always been just either in my house or on the street or just nearby or downstairs in the flat, you know? There's only been once or twice that I've completely left planet Earth, maybe 3 or 4 times, which obviously we'll get to. Most of it has just been, just kind of stuck in the flat. I mean, not just about 2 weeks ago, actually, not long after we had a conversation, I found myself just coming out of body. It just a lot of it just sort of happens naturally these days. I don't really meditate or intend to go out as much, and it's something I want to start doing. But at the minute, I feel like I was just speaking to you before we recorded that I feel like I'm a bit of a workaholic, and sometimes just meditating I find difficult depending on what's going on in life. But there are other times when it just happens naturally. And about 2 weeks ago, I just found myself out, and I was just simply going over some beautiful fields with beautiful trees, and it was all multicoloured, and it was all very nice, you know?
Well, that could have been what makes you think, I guess, in that experience, did you think that was this current Earth planet, or did you think that you were on an astral Earth or an astral plane?
Yeah, my intuition tells me it was beyond this Earth, but it could have been either. But it doesn't really matter. I've come to learn that it doesn't really matter. What matters is, well, I mean, I'm gonna recite or regurgitate Tom Campbell here. You know, according to Tom Campbell, what matters is the data and the information and the messages, and what matters is how you interpret that and then how you integrate that into your life and allow it to help you evolve and grow into a better person. You know,
Right.
But for me, there's always a lesson. So maybe, I mean, I didn't really take the time out to interpret that last one. I just simply enjoyed it, woke up and thought, oh, that was nice, and went back to sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. I have heard, and I've read also that sometimes it's just try not to analyze too much, because actually that might pull you back, and just enjoy the experience, observe and enjoy. And for some, they can stay out longer by doing that rather than getting in their brain, their analytical left brain thinking.
Trying to control it. I mean, I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place because I want to be able to control it. I want to be able to maybe
Right.
direct the experience or sometimes control the body. I just feel like I'm not always in control. And sometimes when I try to stand straight, I'm all wobbly, and it's really hard to navigate the movement. Sometimes I can feel things. Sometimes I have visual perception and I can see. Other times it's not, but I can feel the movement, I can feel the motion, and I can feel like people holding my hands. I've had that quite a few times.
Oh, you can feel someone holding your hand?
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
oh,
I've had
interesting.
I've had experiences when I've just shut out of body. I can't really see anything. Maybe like,
Oh,
in Star Wars when the spaceships go light speed and there's all them lights flashing by.
yeah, yeah.
Sometimes it's like that, and I'm just like, what the hell? It's a bit intense, and I just feel somebody hold my hand. I just feel something grab my hand, and then it
Ah,
just brings me a sense of ease and comfort.
oh, that's nice.
Yeah, it is nice. It's definitely nice, and um, yeah, there's definitely some kind of guidance there. There's definitely some kind of assistance and support and company.
Yeah, I think you said you have met some of your guides. I
Hmm.
can't remember or no.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I definitely have. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So I'll just rewind. So
Yes.
basically that that profound experience that we spoke about in the last video, I came out of that experience with a bit of a, I suppose, foolish attitude, and a young man's attitude was like, well, I don't know, it did give me this enlightenment sort of sensation, and this feeling of power, and this feeling of like, yeah, I've been touched by God, and it gave me
Hmm.
almighty confidence. So, a lot of my life, a lot of my adolescence and my teen years, I was very sort of insular and locked in my own head, and very, like when you say something, and then straight away, as soon as you said it, you think, oh my God, what have I just said? And then it stews in your mind for weeks, months, sometimes years. And you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I said that to that girl. Like, oh my God. But it was like all that had been removed, and I just felt so confident being able to talk to anyone. But it's sort of like at the same time I started to get addicted to the worldly pleasures. Yeah, so drugs, alcohol, women. Obviously, I was like, I was doing a lot of music, so that I was like, me and the guys in the band, we were chasing fame and fortune, and we were convinced that we were going to hit the big time. So for me, hitting the big time was just a natural consequence of what we were doing. So with that certainty, with that attitude comes loads of ego. Like, hey, do you know who you're talking to? We're going to be famous. And wow, the universe tends to humble you, doesn't it? And I went on this journey, and to be fair, I became a bit of a, I wouldn't say nasty person, but not a very, put it this way, if I had children and my daughter brought me home, that old me, I wouldn't be very happy. Do you know what I mean? I was a womanizer. I was a player. I was a bit of a creep. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I didn't really care about anyone else's needs apart from mine. Plus, I'm now living off cocaine, just sniffing cocaine.
Oh,
And we all saw what happened to Jim Morrison in the Doors movie when he started getting into that stuff. It turns you into a very selfish, self-centered, self-serving, self-obsessed, like idiot, really. And yeah, so I got quite ill with that. So from that
were you
profound,
physically, did you start getting physically ill as well? I mean,
not really, only like feeling, because the thing is with cocaine is it's only a psychological addiction. There isn't really a physical dependence. But when you're
mm,
taking it loads of time, if when you're taking it all the time and you're drinking loads of alcohol with it, I suppose it's like taking your car to the garage and continually putting diesel in it. My body's like a vehicle, and it needs food and water and vitamins for it to run.
right.
When it doesn't get that stuff, but it gets the opposite and a load of crap, a load of chemicals that damage you, slowly the vehicle stops working how it should. So getting out, like I can't remember if we were recording or if it was before we pressed record, that getting to the shop was a big ordeal. It was hard work just getting out of the house,
Mm.
and I started to get really ill. Now there was a period where the OBEs didn't really occur for a good 5 years or so.
Why do you think that is?
I think because on a subconscious level, I'd set the intention that I didn't really want to know about the spiritual life
Mm.
yet. I thought, right, I know
Having
this.
too much fun with
Exactly.
with the
Yeah,
worldly
exactly.
life. Mm,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's exactly it. I knew it was there, and I was like, "You're all right. I'm just gonna do my little bit here. I'm gonna have fun here. I'm gonna just experience it, and and see you later, mate. Don't get in the way of what because I know that you're all about love, and I know you're all about morality,
Mhm.
and you're all about selflessness and all that. But I want to be selfish, and I want to satisfy my needs, and I want it to be about me. Even though I couldn't verbalize it that way at the time, looking back, that's what was going on, you know. So I went on this journey, and slowly but surely over the years, like everything started to get taken away from me. So my ability to write music, my ability to have a conversation, I got to the stage where I was that high and that drunk that I couldn't even string a sentence together, and I couldn't. I was, and then it's all like the internal stuff, like your self-respect, like that confidence that I spoke about. That started to go, the integrity and the dignity, all that kind of stuff, and then slowly but surely, I start to develop a relationship with myself where I despise myself, you know, and and yeah, and I got really ill actually, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually ill, and
How many years of a process is this?
so, I mean, like I say, the first time I took LSD, I was probably about 15. So, and I had that profound experience when I was about 21, 22.
Mhm.
And then I probably didn't have any like major profound OBEs for about another 5 years.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you're in
And
your
then
mid-20s and you're a
mid 20s,
mess.
I'm a mess. I'm a mess. And then something happened to me. Um, I did start to have one or two more OBEs, and then I found a book by a guy called Sylvan Muldoon. I don't know if you've ever come across this book. It's one of the. A lot of people think Robert Monroe is like the pioneer, the first guy to write about this stuff objectively from a scientific stance. Because before then, it was only ever written in like Gnostic scripture, esoteric books, witchcraft,
Right. Right.
ancient Egyptian. It wasn't ever really studied or analysed from an objective, non-biased point of view. And a lot of people think Robert Monroe was the first guy to write about it like
Yeah.
that. But actually, there was a guy sometime before him called Sylvan Muldoon, and I think this book came out in 1926. And I highly recommend it. It's a brilliant read, and it's called The Projection of the Astral Body. And I stumbled across this book. I heard some guy talking about it online, and I thought I need to find this book. And eventually, I managed to get my hands on it. And I read this book, and then I started to have experiences again. I think because I was absorbing my mind in it.
Right.
And then, yeah, and I remember this one time where I came out of my body, and I was just like at the end of the room looking at my own body asleep, and I could see my girlfriend next to me. And I was just like blown away. It was like, oh my God. But what was going on here as well is I started to read this book, and I started to have a few more experiences, and I started to get a bit obsessed with it again. I started to really sort of I was trying to find more people, like other people who could identify with me, but I couldn't find them anywhere. And this is when the Messiah complex really started to like kick in. I started
Mm.
to think, well, no one's having these experiences. And like I say, I was in the music scene, so I knew hundreds of people, and I would always ask people, "Have you ever had this? Have you ever had that? Have you ever?" And they were like, "Oh, you're smoking too many drugs, you mate. Oh, you need to go to rehab. You need to sort yourself out." I'm like, no, no, no. And then it started to annoy me, you know. I'd gone past the Messiah complex. I went past this like, well, I'm special. I'm different to you. I'm chosen. You're not. You're just asleep in your little earthly existence. I know more about the cosmos. Do you know what I mean? I
Right.
started, I started to get a bit like intoxicated with this superiority feeling. Do you know what I mean? And but then it started to annoy me why no one would believe me. So my girlfriend at the time and a friend of mine, they used to just like basically just say, listen, mate, will you shut up talking about it? You're not right in the head. You're mental. You're ill. You're crazy. And I'm like, listen, I'm not crazy. I can fly. Right. So obviously, like, there was starting to become a bit of started to push people away, because they
Sure.
wouldn't
Of
believe me. They
course.
wouldn't, but my sort of stance was, listen, you're not right in the head. You don't understand life, and you're asleep. And you need to have one of these experiences
Mm.
to become who you were born to be. And you need me. You need my help. And they wouldn't like buy into my philosophy. So I just started to fall out with everyone.
Mm.
And while all this was happening, I was still like taking loads of drugs, drinking, and then I was
Still a
still,
musician? Still
still
working in music?
well, kind of actually. So the band that I was in split up after we were together for about 9 years, and we missed out on some real good opportunities. And then that kind of went to one side, and I got myself in another music project, which actually got a lot closer to becoming successful.
Mm.
But all along, I was losing my ability to perform, and there was times when I was on stage, and I was like blacking out, and I wanted to like come back round. And what I didn't realise was that I was highly addicted. Now, I'd been through loads of problems with drugs before this, like ending up thousands of pounds in debt, having to seek professional help, and then going back to it, close friends dying, all sorts of
Mm.
tragic things. Every relationship was like wrecked because of it. I remember I
Yeah.
was selling loads of cocaine from a girlfriend's house, and she didn't have any idea about it. And then I had to like confess all that. And slowly but surely, everything, I started to have to sell things. Like I had to sell my car, I had to sell my guitars,
Wow.
I had to sell my amps, and I was just thousands in debt. And I was slowly plummeting and plummeting and plummeting. Plus, when the Messiah complex isn't yielding the I suppose the attention that I wanted, or the respect, or I wanted people to revere me,
Right.
and I started to become intoxicated in the mind, and I started to push people I loved away, and like I say, I'm losing everything now, mentally, emotionally, financially,
Wow.
physically,
Yeah. Rock bottom
and
for sure.
yeah, I'm really heading there quite quick, and but what's happened is this book, this Sylvan Muldoon book, taught me how to do it at will. So in this book, it's got some suggestions of how
Oh,
to,
okay.
yeah,
Techniques, practical techniques.
yeah, some techniques of how to achieve it, and then so there was this one day when I thought, right, you know what, I'm going to go up to my room and I'm going to go and lie on my bed and I'm going to basically do this. I'm going to follow these instructions and I am going to do this, and I did, and I for the first time achieved an OBE at
Wow.
will. So what's happened is that I'm kind of like led on the bed face down, and I've come out of the bed like that, and that was weird. As I'm coming out of the bed, I turn to the right and I look in the mirror, and I just see this like almost like smoky, like ghost like figure. Do you know what I mean? And that
Hmm.
freaked me out. I was like, oh my god, I'm a ghost. I'm a ghost. And then I managed to like perch myself at the end of the bed. And again, I was like looking at my body in bed, and it can be quite freaky all this, especially when you're ill, especially when you're mentally ill because of narcotics and everything. And then I kind of like think, right, well, what do I do now? Can I go through the wall? So I've gone through the wall, and I've ended up in my friend's room, and I've seen him in bed as I'm like going past. I'm like, oh my god! And then a bit of guilt kicked in, like I shouldn't be in here. This is he could be doing anything. Do you know what I mean? I should be respecting his privacy. And as I'm like thinking all this, without realising it, I'm just getting faster and faster, and I've basically shut out the window. But the fear again has kicked in. So what I didn't realise at this time was that I had like fear inside me all my life. My entire life I had fear, just fear of living, fear of dying, fear of failing, but fear of succeeding, fear of fear of being single the rest of my life,
Hmm.
but fear of being in a relationship because I wanted my freedom. just basically every fear you can think of, whatever it was, just afraid of, but paradoxically afraid of the polar opposite. So I was just riddled with fear. And one thing that I didn't realise was I was actually really afraid of going out of body. Do you know what I mean? And I was afraid of like admitting the verity of this stuff.
That's one of the first things I hear all the time, and when I'm reading and when I'm having discussions, in the groups, AP groups, fear. And one of the number one things to conquer if you want to be successful with going out of body.
Yeah, and I will humbly admit I've still not conquered it all. Do you know what I mean? Conquered some of it, but yeah, I had, because for me it was like, right, around this time when I read that book and I learned how to do it at will. I was a very, very ill person at this point. I was taking so many drugs and I was like falling out with everybody, and I was getting really, really ill. And the thing is about cocaine is it's very, very expensive. So when you can't afford cocaine, is anything will do. It doesn't matter if it's amphetamine, ketamine, ecstasy. There was these legal highs called meow meow. I don't know if you've heard of that one. Methadone, whatever. If it was a powder and it was white, it would go up my nose if I couldn't get cocaine. I know, yeah. And I had no idea what I was taking, and slowly but surely I started to like lose my mind and get very, very mentally ill. And then I had this like idea, because I was starting to lose everything at this point, losing all. Like, I'm so skint, it's unbelievable. I've got nothing. I've had to sell all my guitars. I've sold my car, and then all that money that's coming, I've paid dealers off, but I'm sniffing more. And then I'm like, I'm thousands of pounds in debts to the dealers, and they say, well, I'll tell you what, take all this and sell it for me. So I'm like, right, okay, but I can't sell it because I'm sniffing it, and I'm plummeting myself further in debt. It's all getting very out of hand and chaotic and out of control. And while all this is happening, I've learned to induce out of body experiences at will, because I've got like twisted, dark thoughts. In my mind, I'm thinking, honestly, this was my master plan, right? This was my master plan. I was like, well, now I know that I can do this, and now I know that I can see people and spy on them when they can't see me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move down to London, and I'm going to like spy on a load of the politicians, okay? And I'm going to watch their every move, and I'm going to find out which politicians are like having an affair or just up to no good. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start sending them letters and bribing them. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to become like a spiritual briber, yeah.
Wow.
And this is where my mind was going. So
Yeah.
like I said to you about 20, 30 minutes ago, that a lot of people have these spiritual experiences, and it puts them on a good path.
Yeah.
And they change for the better.
You're like, how can I abuse this gift?
Exactly. And that's exactly what I was doing. So yeah, things after that started to get really bad, actually. So cutting a long story short, I ended up in a psychiatric unit. So I started to take that many drugs that I wasn't sleeping. So I was just, I went nearly 2 weeks without sleep. And then crazy things would happen.
So bad for you.
Yeah.
Well, everything you're doing is bad for you at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, it got worse. So like, I remember things were happening where I would fall asleep, and I would have a dream of something tragic, like say my girlfriend would get brutally murdered in this dream. But and then I'd like snap out of this dream, thinking that it was real. So I'm like, I think my dad found me like in a field crying, and like I was just basically going through like psychosis and having a mental breakdown.
Right.
Like, my brain couldn't handle the drugs. Plus, I've become a nasty piece of work who wants to go and spy on people.
Right. I'm guessing that plan never played out.
Thank God it didn't play out. It didn't play out. But what happened was I was thinking, hang on a minute, if I can go and spy on people, maybe people are spying on me. And then I'm thinking, what is going on in this world? Who knows what? Who's spying on who? Who's doing what here? And then I'm thinking, surely these politicians know if I start popping out, and what if I run into someone else who's spying on them? And I don't know. I just started to like really go into a dark world with it all. And then what's happened is so about a week before I got sectioned into the psychiatric unit, I'm having this out of body experience, and I've just come out of body, and I'm just like hovering above the couch that I'm asleep on, and I had this very strange experience where there was like these figures at the end of the bed. There was about 7 or 8 faces, and they look like the deck of cards,
Mm-hmm.
the Jack, Queen, King on a deck of cards, and they look like Victorian kind of, like the men have long hair and they're very serious. It was like 7 jacks at the end of the bed, all looking at me, like with a face of kind of like, concern, like. And anyway, long story short, one of them's kind of like turned into this demonic figure, and it's kind of attacked me, and it's come right up to me like screaming at me, and it was the most terrifying experience I've ever had, and yeah, it was quite. It's a bit hard to explain. So basically, there's this demon thing coming towards me, and as it's coming towards me, I've become aware of another being in the corner of the room, what I think maybe was like a guardian angel or a spirit guide or something. And as this thing is like attacking me, this other being has come across and like basically removed it. It's a bit hard to explain, and then it was quite weird. They passed that demon thing's disappeared, and I'm just looking at this spirit guide, and she's passed me this like crystal, this blue glowing crystal, and I kind of said, "What's that?" And as I'm saying this, I've grabbed it, and as I've grabbed it, I've just returned back to the bed, and I'm just like back, well, the settee, should I say, and I'm just back on the couch, like really shaken up by this experience, and then I've got it in my head that I've become possessed. Like this demon thing has got inside me.
Right.
So I'm just convinced now that, because I was also studying some Christian literature around this time. I don't know if you've ever heard of a guy called Swedenborg.
Mm-hmm.
You've heard of Swedenborg, yeah.
Yes.
So I was reading a lot of Swedenborg, because he was apart from Sylvan Muldoon, he was one of the only guys I could find who was talking about this stuff. And Swedenborg kind of led me to Christianity. So at the time, I was exploring a bit of Christianity. Plus, I also had a bit of conditioning from my childhood about Christian ideas. So stuff like possession and the devil were ideas that I was really entertaining. You know what I mean? So I'm just thinking, oh my God, oh my God, oh God, what have I done? I'm taking drugs. I'm acting out on lust. I'm like full of pride and ego, and oh man, the devil's got me. I'm working for the devil. So that was it. Then I just got it in my head that I was possessed. This demonic. I've penetrated.
So the angel didn't, or the guide that handed you the blue crystal, that
Mhm.
didn't give you any sense of that, oh, okay, I was protected and this person is,
It had a very nice energy, and I was very happy to see it, and I was very happy that it came to my assistance. It definitely came to my assistance, whatever
but you
it was.
still, I guess it sounds like you're thinking, well, it failed in keeping that thing from possessing me.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like it got me out of the situation, but maybe just not quick enough. Now at this point, this is during the time that I'm not sleeping for 2 weeks, so I've got all sorts of ideas going on in my head. You
Right.
know,
Right.
I remember thinking that I was messing around with black magic. I was thinking, oh my God, I'm there telling people this stuff's like freeing and enlightening, but shit, it's black magic, and I've no idea. All this time I've never known. I've
Mm.
been messing around with these, like what the Bible would call these tools of sorcery and whatnot, and
Right.
wizardry, and I had no idea. Seems
And
like
then you went in a week later to the psychiatric ward?
Yeah,
after that. Okay.
yeah, I did. And then so from the psychiatric unit, I've ended up for the next like 18 months, 2 years. I've ended up committing myself to a life of recovery and treatment and psychotherapy and help to get off drugs, basically, and alcohol. And the first couple of years were really tough. I was relapsing a lot. I didn't really get a grasp of it all, and it was very, very hard. Because like I said, I had this musician identity. So
Mm,
alcohol,
right.
drugs, LSD was all part of that. And I was very much in denial. I was very much deluded, thinking that I didn't have a problem with drugs, even though I'd taken them pretty much every day for a good 15 years.
Yeah.
And obviously, I was very ill.
Mm.
And I
What do you think was what do you attribute to your turnaround ultimately?
my turnaround, I think that horrifically scary experience was one of
That
the turnarounds.
that
Yeah,
one, okay.
I
Kind of
think well,
shook you up.
it shook me. It shook me real good. And now, and what I believe now, at the time I was thinking, again, going back to these belief systems, I
Hmm.
believed that I'd entered some darker realm. But really, what I believed was that the darker realm was within, and
Absolutely.
I projected it, and I created the experience. But with the assistance of what people call it God, people call it the cosmic consciousness, people call it the divine mind or the universal mind. Tom Campbell calls it the larger consciousness system. Between between the consequence of my choices and the assistance of this larger consciousness system or God or whatever, it reflected to me who I was on the inside. So the
Right.
demon wasn't really separate from me; it was me. You know,
Right. Right.
that's what I
Wow.
understand. You know, and it honestly it scared. Honestly, I'll never experience fear like it. And what came after it, you know, I
So,
remember.
oh no, go on.
Well,
We are getting really close to being out of time, and
okay.
I don't want to cut you off, so I want to hear you were going to share.
Yeah, so basically, for a period of time now, for a number of years, I'm having both beautiful experiences and dark experiences. So there was one time when I came out of body, very similar to that first time I met an entity. I came out of body, and there was a beautiful entity just stood there. Again, it was like emitting this energy of love and security,
Mm.
and I felt no threat off it whatsoever. And it was basically, and next to this entity was this like big portal. It was like this big glowing white ball that was swirling. It was like, and I knew that it was a kind of portal to the astral or to another world. And this entity basically just kind of uh, transmitted this information of basically just saying, look, we know you're scared, uh, but it's okay. The door's kind of here when you're ready. We know you're not ready. We know you've got
Mm.
things to do. Obviously, I was like, I was in and out of drug use at this point. Maybe I'd get like 2 months clean, then I'd go on a bender for 2 months, and I'd get another 2 months
Okay.
clean. I'd go on a bender for two. So it was during this time. So it was a very beautiful, reassuring
Mm.
experience. But then maybe a week later, I would have another experience where I was like attacked off shadow beings. Like I'm coming out of body and there's these beings crawling up my legs, the
Right.
like cloaked and these with like purple skin and bones and all sorts of horrible imagery. So it was very much like this yin and yang of like
Right.
dark
For
and
about,
light.
you said 18 months you were back and forth.
Yeah, well, even maybe a bit longer because I had a couple of real profound, beautiful experiences around this time, and then it was almost like I'd had a top up, and I was ready for the next stage of life, and so I eventually got clean, and I came out of treatment, and I ended up in college, and then once I'd kind of got on this new path, the experiences started to subside a little bit,
Oh,
just little ones every now and then, but there was still, I'd say, for about the next 2 years, I was still having strange, like shadow being encounters.
okay. What do you think that it was? from?
I felt like it was just again just a reflection of me, and there was still a lot of work to do.
Right.
There was still a
Yeah.
lot of because even though I'd changed, like in my heart, and I'd given up drinking drugs, and I was on a good path, I'd still a lot of there was still a wreckage in my
Sure.
past.
So
And
still so much to work through.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I've still got a lot of guilt and shame and regret and remorse attached to these previous experiences. You know.
Of course. Of course.
So it was basically showing me, all right, you've overcome the biggest challenge, but the journey starts here. The work isn't done yet. You've still got all this darkness within that needs to come out. You need to declutter, you know.
Right.
But luckily, touch wood, I've not had one of them shadow being experiences probably for about 4 or 5 years now.
You have not had one for 4 or 5 years.
No, no. And what's happened is that I have experiences now where I come out of body and I can feel like a guide at one end of the bed and a guide at the other end of the bed. And it's like they're healing me, and I can feel like electrical surges going up and down me. Like
Wow.
I've heard a guy from the Monroe Institute talk about this, and he calls them energy showers, where they're basically helping you sort of restore and regenerate and rejuvenate energy. And sometimes like I have a lot of these experiences when I'm struggling. So if I've got an exam coming up, or if I'm like I was saying earlier, like the workaholic stuff, if I become run down and I'm depleting on energy, and then all of a sudden, bang, I'm out of body and they're charging me up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
an amazing experience. That's awesome.
It is. Yeah, I'm looking at the clock. It's 9 o'clock. Are we out of time?
Oh, I know. Time flies in these fascinating conversations. Um, yeah, that was quite a dark journey you had. My goodness. Wow. And so much, I feel like so many people will be able to relate to you
Yeah,
and your
hopefully.
story. And I think it's a victory.
Yeah, and if anyone's going through this stuff, like what I sit here now and I look back at these terrifying experiences, whether it's vibrational stuff, whether it's shadow beings, and there's even been some I've not got into this, some like strange like sexual experiences, almost like sexual abuse. Do you know what I mean? And I've
Hmm.
heard quite a few people speak about this, where they feel like they're being like, yeah, sexually abused, like on like during the vibrational stage.
Right.
And I've heard quite a few people talk about this, and it can be very, very like terrifying. But again, I feel that might be a reflection of my previous behaviour, where I was basically very selfish around women. Do you know what I mean? Where I would
Right.
manipulate women in order to get sexual gratification, and then once
Right.
I achieve my ends, and it takes a bit to admit this because I'm basically saying I'm a bit of a bastard. I'm a bit of, I've not treated women very well. But these kind of experiences have maybe shown me that
Mm.
I've got to change.
Right. Right.
But yeah, what I was trying to say was all these like very dark, twisted experiences that I've experienced. I actually believe that the source of these experiences is light and love, and these things have helped me evolve.
It seems like there's always been, it sounds like even through all of these very scary experiences, you've always had a guide or some positive energy trying to just be there for whenever you're ready,
Yeah,
which
I,
is beautiful.
yeah. I mean, it's just they've all changed me. Like I say, I've not took a drink or a drug for 7.5 years now. I've gone into education. I've done quite a bit of charity work. It's just made me a better person.
How often are your OBEs these days?
I don't know. Sometimes I can maybe have like two or three in a month,
Hmm.
and then
Do you
other
do it on
times,
purpose, initiate them?
no, I don't. I don't. I've never felt like I'm in the right. I want to. It's something that I feel that at any stage now in my life, I'm going to start reading it. I've got all the Jürgen Zive books up here, and I've barely touched them. I've got Tom Campbell's book, which I'm about a quarter of the way through. I don't know if you've seen it. It's like two Bibles in one. Um, I've got access to all the International Academy of Consciousness literature. I've got
Wow.
pretty much all their literature.
You have it
And
all.
yeah, yeah. I know I want to get all the William Boolham literature.
Gilman, yeah.
And the day's going to come where I just read it every day for like years. But at the minute, I feel like because I've been in university for the last, like, I'm going to a 6th year at uni, and it gets very, very stressful and painful, and I just know that I'm not in a relaxed state mentally or emotionally.
Right, right. Well, I guess we need to finish up. We went way over time. Oh well, that's okay. Oh no. So it's so been very interesting and inspiring in a lot of ways, and I'm really happy for the journey and the path you're on now.
Yeah, me too. And just again, if anyone is watching who can relate to this and is going through some very dark experiences, just look at what is it trying to teach you. How can you take this experience and integrate it and allow it to help you?
Right, right.
That's it. Face it. Don't be afraid of it. Face it. Because that is what
Mm.
I'll end on this. So I know we're out of time. But it really stopped happening for me once when I kept having this encounter with this shadow being, and I got taught to teach it with love. So when I encountered it next, I just said, "I love you. I really, really love you. In fact, come and give me a hug." And I ran over to hug it, and it ran off,
Yep.
and it was gone. Do you know what I mean? I have met one or two again, but then what I did is in meditation, I put a prayer out and I said, "Just show me my fear, show me my biggest fear." And then I had a few experiences, but yeah, basically just work with it. Come from love, ask questions and work with it, and you'll overcome it. Face the fear.
Beautiful. Yeah, beautiful way to end this. I agree. And thank you so much for sharing that last bit. But thank you for this whole thing. I appreciate it, Paul. And thank you to everyone who's been listening in. Thank you for watching. This has been Julie McVey with Unordinary Made Ordinary. And I do hope you'll join us next time for another fascinating interview. And if you've enjoyed this video, if you liked it, give it a thumbs up, please. And then, of course, subscribe if you like this kind of content, and then hit that bell button or icon, I guess, to be alerted of future videos. So I hope you are having a wonderful day or evening, wherever you are on the planet or off the planet. And we'll see y'all next time.
Cheers,
Thanks.
Julie. Thanks, everyone.